Hey man, we back. Hey, how the audio? Let me see something right quick. Can y'all hear me? I'm live. We live, man. Meet me on the 50. The Band Room's very first live, man, presents From Rags to Riches, building a successful band program from ground zero. Man, we gonna look every Monday night. This is what we gonna start doing right here, man. There's a lot of information to be shared and a lot of knowledgeable folks out there with that info, man. So the good brother Charles Connor is the first up, and it's a topic that he had sent out. This is one of his topics, man, so I'm looking forward to hearing from him. Any questions you have for Brother Connor, put them in the comments. I'll make sure I get them over to him. You know, I want him to focus on his message and what he's got going on. So without further ado, man, how you doing, Chuck?
Man, I'm doing good, bro. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for being on for the. I don't even know which camera to look into. I'm gonna look at the one right there. All right. So yeah, man. Thank you for accepting the first invitation, bro. This is gonna be something we do every Monday, man. So this is dope.
Yeah, man, that's cool, man. It's definitely, you know what I'm saying, a blessing and an honor, you know, and just to be able to talk about something that I'm passionate about. And hopefully somebody can use these, golden nuggets to build their current band or, you know, any future directors build their future band program.
Yeah. So how long you been in the game, bro, as a director?
Man, this is going into year 17 for me. 16 as a high school head band director, and my first year teaching was I was a general music teacher, and I taught at an alternative school. And so, so this is going into year 17 for me in music education.
Dope, man. So you A&T grad, right?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm a two-time alum, man. HBCU alum, Fayetteville State University and North Carolina A&T.
Okay. Man, what you think about both of those programs, bro?
Man, they're amazing, man. I mean, I always tell, I had a blessing and opportunity to be part of both of the programs at some very interesting times. I got to A&T in 2001, so I was at the tail end of the Dr. Johnny B. Hodge era.
Yeah.
And,
R.I.P.
so that was
R.I.P.
Yeah, that was definitely, you know what I'm saying? And then that was my applied instructor. So I had lessons with him, private lessons every week. For 2 years before he retired. And so that was a blessing. And then, I ended up, due to personal reasons, coming home and finishing out at Fayetteville State University. And I got to be underneath the late, great Timothy Chambers. And got to finish out with him and learn a lot. And both of those programs at that time, I think 2007 was the largest program at Fayetteville State University. And it's amazing. Like this year, man, they're back to kind of some of the same instrumentation that we had when I was there, and they're looking and sounding great. And so I'm just, really excited about them. Of course, my heart is always, with both my programs, but A&T, has been my love since high school, and they just kicking tail and setting trends,
Absolutely, man. So look, that's the intro right there, man. I'm not going to take too much more of your time, Charles, man. I know you got a lot lined up for the viewers, man. So if you are just tuning in, man, this is Charles Connor right here, and he's got a great lesson for you today, man. This is From Rags to Riches, building a successful band program from ground zero. Take it away, Charles. Is it Chuck?
Right,
Charles, Chuck? What you mean call you?
Yeah, Chuck is cool, man. Everybody
right.
knows it's Chuck. That's
All right,
cool.
let's do it, man. I'm about to go ahead and turn my camera off, and it's on you.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. All right, so first and foremost, shout out to everybody who's out there. Again, this is a blessing and an opportunity. The things that I'm going to touch on are just experiences that I've been through as a high school band director, as a secondary music educator, and some things that I know that you could do to help build your program, or if you're like supporting, if you're on staff and helping out, that can help push your band program forward, okay? Again, the first bullet point that I had on there was just a little background. Again, had an opportunity to attend two HBCUs. I have a master's from Vandercook College of Music. And throughout those, that my formal education, it's allowed me to really push my kids. And so one of the things I will talk about later is the importance of respecting your craft. I used to have an older frat brother who used to say that all the time, respect your craft. Learn as much as you can in various different things, and that's just going to pour back to your program and to your kids. Sometimes we can remain stagnant and we stay in our ways, and it's very important that we grow. All right, so the first thing that I have on there is like, what is success? Like defining what success is. If you're a director of bands, if you're a staff member or an aspiring or even an alum and you want to help out, you got to find out what that vision is in terms of the director or you as the director that is success. What is success? Is success blowing out every band you face? Is success having what we call like a comprehensive program? Is success taking your kids all over the country and all over the world? Like, what do you define as success? And it could be different for everybody. Again, we've all had those moments where we were the Debo and we, showed another band how it was supposed to be done, and that's cool. But then, you really have to think about, just, is it just the moment, or are you thinking about maybe 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line? And I know, for being on the outside in, sometimes individuals could not like understand the vision of a director, and they'd be like, man, why are they doing this? Or why this doesn't make sense? Or why is the band not going here or whatever? Like, again, it may not be in the vision, it may not be in the vision. And so, again, kind of defining success. And like Eddie said as well, if you guys got questions in there, and he's going to make sure he sends them over to me, but I can see in the live chat as well too. Appreciate all the love. And so again, defining what success is. What is, success to you? The next bullet point that I have, it is very important that you find out, we talked about the vision director, but you got to find the vision of the school, the district, the administration support, faculty, staff, and community support. Again, I've had an opportunity in my years teaching. I taught 7 years in North Carolina at Hope Canyon High School. That was my baby. That was my first program. And shout out to them right now. My assistant director at the time is now the head, and he's been there, I think, longer than me now. He took over the reins in the fall of 2015, and they are like they're soaring past, the things that I was able to accomplish. And I saw that, I saw that in them. And so, to directors that you may shift from one to the next, you got to make sure you put it in the right hands. And sometimes that doesn't always happen. And so, but again, vision of administration. So after I taught, during my time in North Carolina, I had a really good relationship with my principal coming in. My first, my first principal prior to me being a high school band director was actually my high school principal. So I always tell my students, you never burn a bridge because you never know when you have to cross over it again. It was actually my high school principal that gave me my first job. And he remembered I was in the band. He remembered I was passionate about music and about helping others. And he was like, hey, do you want a job? The interview was like 5 to 10 minutes, and that's how it worked. And so, understanding his vision for that program, that was, just to kind of keep, students that have had trouble in their previous school, at their home school, and then now that we're at their alternative school, how can I help them kind of see a bigger picture per se, and make school fun and exciting for them. And so, we did a lot of cool things, kind of got into some basic music tech with them, and that kept the kids on the straight and narrow. And so, but you got to know the vision. When I came into my first high school program, my principal was like, hey, can you do a jazz band? Can you do a concert band? Can you get the band out there on the field? We only got 20 members. How can you build this? Like, that was his vision. He wanted to see these kids, and it was a county school. And so, the county, at one time we had 2 feeder schools. And then eventually, with the help of Mr. Pickett, that's the director of bands at the high school, he started the new school. And so we had 3 feeders going into one school. And all it was a matter of like putting the product out there. I always tell folks that your biggest recruitment is your performance. Again, how I got hooked into band on the high school level and on the collegiate level was because of a band's performance. I saw what they did. It looked great. It sounded good. And I wanted to be a part of that. Same thing for my organizations, for KK Psi and for Alpha Phi Alpha. I saw prominent members in those organizations, and I wanted to be a part of it. And so for those of you guys that are building programs, you got to put a product out there. You got to put something that is polished and something that is going to give kids a sense of wanting to belong. Again, I always, tell my students of my experience, the greatest team that I was a part of, it wasn't any band. It was actually football as a freshman. I played football for 2 years in high school, And that team ended up moving from one state to the next. I'm a military brat. And that team ended up winning a state title. And there was no, question of why they won a state title, because their coaches were on point, the upperclassmen led by example, and they held us accountable. I was a freshman on that team, me and one of my buddies, and we couldn't miss workouts. We had to be the first there, the last to leave. We had to make sure we were eating right, and they checked us. They made sure they held us accountable, and that team was like the greatest team I was a part of, because everybody was truly about business. And when I moved, found out that they won a state title, and I was like, man, I'm not surprised. They're just that good. So again, vision. Understand the vision. When I went to Chicago, I taught on the South Side of Chicago for 4 years and started the program really from ground zero. We didn't have one instrument or a band room. And in a matter of 4 years, we had 80 kids in the marching band, we had a jazz band, and we had a concert band. And several of those kids went on to scholarship, and they had just started in 9th grade. And so I knew the vision of the principal because he was an Aggie just like me. We're actually in the band. He was a drum major in the band a few years before I arrived there. And he was like, hey, you know what I want here? We got to bring that South flavor here to the Midwest. And we had a clear understanding in terms of the vision for the school. The band was like the marquee of the school. Even before we built it, he was like, I want this band. And so we were able to make it happen. Again, understanding the vision of the principal. Now, sometimes that doesn't mean eye to eye. When I left Chicago, I went to Vegas, and principal, he was like, okay, this is different or whatever, but we really didn't see eye to eye about a lot of things. And just didn't understand the importance of what a band can do to a school. It was kind of like okay, as long as they're doing something, or I don't even care what they're doing, as long as they're not in trouble. And that's a environment that I can't function. Even in my 7 years when I was in North Carolina, we had some shifts of administration, and sometimes it worked, and then other times me and the administration kind of bumped head to head. But he had to understand, like, hey, I got a vision for this program. It's going to be within line of the school, in line of the school, but I want to make it bigger than what maybe the vision of the school is. I want the band to be the leader of example. And so it's very, very important that you understand the vision of your administration. Also, your district. I'm here at Tucker High School in DeKalb County. Everybody that's familiar with DeKalb County knows the history and tradition of bands here. Our district director just recently retired, Mr. Don P. Roberts. You probably know him from Drumline Live, Falcon the Winter Soldier, that TV show, they had a band that was on there. He was over that. Like, again, he does a lot of great things. And I remember meeting him a few years ago at the Midwest Conference. And he was like, man, Charles, if you ever looking for a gig in DeKalb County, hit me up. Let me know. And so, again, I talk about that. Your performance is your biggest recruitment, not only for your future kids, but also your future employment as well too. And I'm going to talk about some different things that have happened performance-wise for my kids and for me as a director, which helps. Anytime you set foot outside of the band room, it should be a direct representation of your school, your administration, your community, and of course, what you stand for as a band director. And again, I'm not going to get on here and talk about anybody else's program. I just want to provide insight in ways that you can get better. I talked about support, again, not only from your district, but also your administration, but your faculty and staff. One of my mentors, Mr. Roosevelt Pratt, E. Smith High School. I'm a Westover High School alum, which is the rival of E. Smith High School, but he was a huge mentor for me. And one of the things that he taught me, he was like, hey, you better get to know your bookkeeper. You better get to know your custodians. You better get to know your lunch workers. You need to know these other individuals that make the school run and function, because they're going to be there when they need you, when you need them. When I was in Chicago, we had a building engineer, and there was no getting into that band room or to that school on the weekend. It took hell and high water to do that. And fortunately, me and the building administrator, the engineer, we got really cool with each other, older lady, and she was like, son, you just give me a call, I'll open up the code from my phone and you can get in there with those kids. And I was just thankful for that, because again, depending on where you go, you may have access to your band room, at different hours, on the weekend and in the evening. Some, it's like Fort Knox getting in there. But if you build that rapport with that faculty and also the staff, then it's going to help you. My custodian now, he makes sure that our bedroom is clean, our bathrooms are clean. He makes sure he takes care of us, and we take care of him as well. What he doesn't know this year, he's going to get one of our new band shirts, and he's part of the family. And I make sure I introduce him to, to the entire band. I'll be like, hey, this is Mr. Tan. You know what I'm saying? He's our custodian, he's family, and we want to make sure that we take care of him and vice versa. But you got to know those individuals that work and make your school run, especially that bookkeeper, because that bookkeeper, that holds that money unless you got a booster program, which I'm going to talk about later. And then also community support. I've always told my kids that, hey, this ain't our band, this is the community's band. Because in the end, they're going to be the one to support you. I've had a fortunate opportunity to take my band several different places. And one of the performances we did was the National Memorial Day Parade in Washington, D.C. in 2011. And we were the representative for the state of North Carolina. We could have not made that trip if it wasn't for the community. Now, if we gave a subpar performance at we had this thing called the Turkey Festival, right? Hope County is like the home of like Butterball turkeys, right? And so they have this thing called the Turkey Festival, and we would always that was like one of the highlight performances of our year, it was crazy. We started off my first year being in the front of the parade, and then I remember the second or third year, in the middle of the parade, they said, hey, slow down. We're going to move some of the other parts of the parade first because we want you to be last because people are going to leave as soon as you guys get done. And I was like, oh, my goodness, this is an amazing thing. I mean, it happened in the middle of the performance. And so that performance was like A1 for us, Even the Gotham City Invitational that's hosted at E.E. Smith High School, we won that competition 4 times as a grand champion. And we won it 2 times back-to-back, lost the 3rd time, and then came back and won 2 times over. And that was a staple performance for us because the kids knew in Hope County, Fayetteville bands, that was it. That was the bragging rights. When they went to state competition, it was like, okay, but nah, we wanted to win that local one. So when our kids were in the mall and around the community and stuff, they could be like, hey, we won it again this year, And so again, those community performances, those ones that are local are very important. Again, I go back to Hope County, we had a local paper. And every time we did something good, we were front and center. And that let the community know, hey, we're here for you. When we do great, it's because of you guys. And so, again, you got to have that community support. You got to dig in. You got to know your community. You got to know the people that work at the mom and pop shop down the street and things like that, because those individuals are going to help you out. And they can tell you a lot. They can tell you a lot about the community. When I got here to Tucker, we had I came ahead of my family about a month or so to get started, and there was a gentleman that used to walk by with his dog, and I used to see him every morning, and even when we had practice, and we would just have a conversation. Of course, it was still in the pandemic, so we were way away from each other, but he would always tell me about the local paper and this magazine that he did, and about seeing the band here for years. He had lived in the community. He lives in the community. He's been here for 30, 40 something years, and so just again, reaching out to the community is very, very important. It makes those people feel a part of what you do. We had somebody post online and had another local band director send it to me. They were like, man, I came out of an appointment and I was hearing the Tucker band play down the street. It made my day. That stuff is really, really important. And I always remind my kids what we're here for. It ain't about trying to outdo that band down the street. It ain't trying to, yeah, we want to be the best, but we want to be better than ourselves versus letting somebody else kind of dictate what we do. And so it's all about the mentality of the head and disseminating that through the students. So again, district administrative support, faculty and staff, and community support. Did have a couple questions. I did see one in here. I'll kind of go back and forth. Ms. Smith asked, how do you teach band and balance work-life balance? That's still something that I have not figured out. I was just having literally a conversation with my wife before I jumped on, and I was like, full-time husband, full-time band director, full-time father, and she gave me that look like it's band season. So, loving husband, full-time band director, and about 70-80%, husband. Like, it's so tough, and I'll be honest and I'll be transparent. There's been some moments even through the pandemic that I thought about hanging it up and doing something else. I don't know what else, but doing something else because, we sacrifice a lot. Think about when you were in college band or high school band, your band director was there all the time. I never forget when the late great Dr. Johnny B. Hodge retired, and I was upset that he retired because he was my applied instructor. I wanted to graduate from his studio, be his last graduate. And he was like, son, he's like, I owe the rest of this time to my wife and to my family. And I didn't understand it then, I was like, man, it's selfish, I came here all the way for you. But then when I got older, I was like, man, I totally understand, what it is. I mean, he literally slept in the band room and in his office. He was never home. He was always with us. And I was part of the A&T band where we practiced to midnight, 1 in the morning, 1:30 sometimes. And he was always right there, front and center, and I'm just like, man, just thinking about the time that he missed out. All right, y'all gonna get me on my soapbox. But that's a great question. One thing I try to do, and I have to get better, is to lighten the load around the house and stuff. Like when I do have that time off, like do as much as I can. We try to put some systems in place to really balance things out. But it's important that when you have a mate, that a spouse, that they understand like what's going on in your profession and your calling. I always tell my wife that being a teacher, being a band director is a calling. And I'm, it's my job to make these kids better people and through the medium of music. And so, my wife understands. She was like, you got to be there for your kids. You got to do that. But I still have to take care of things as a husband. I still got to do laundry, which I got to do a bunch right now. I still got to clean. I still got to help cook and stuff. And so I just try to find other areas, to help out as much as I can because the work, the balance, the pay, it definitely doesn't even out. But, I always feel I'm doing it for a better purpose, and I hope that, each of my kids understand that. Now, I do appreciate my kids, when it's done with practice, they go. They're like the best ever in my career. They go home, and I say thank you for my family and for myself and even for my dog. Then I'm able to get home at a reasonable time.
Hey, Chuck. All right, Chuck, quick question, man. So, going back to what you said, just want to piggyback on this. So for the directors who have reached out for support from the administration and they're not, you hear about these stories of not getting funding and not getting that support. How do they create a vision if that is their situation? Well, I'm going to be honest. You got to have courageous conversations. That was something that we in Chicago used to have all the time between teachers, between administration. And sometimes you got to look like the crazy band director. Like one thing they told me as an undergrad student, and I'm sure the other directors on here have heard it, and even the music educators, music education students have heard it. You got to be an advocate for your program, and you have to be able to come with concrete facts, data, and reasoning why things need to be in a certain way. And you can get a lot of pushback. I mean, I remember one year I was fussing at my principal about getting T-shirts for the band. When I showed up to the school, we had a budget, and then at the end of my tenure there, it was like I had to show my tail to get some T-shirts. I'm like, wait a minute. And so what you have to do is have that data. I remember when we raised money. Oh, no, excuse me. We had it in our budget to take kids to a camp, to the TSU camp in Tennessee. And right before we were about to go, they were like, oh, no, the money's supposed to be somewhere else. I'm like, excuse me? And I had everything to the T, to the penny lined up. And then you know what I did? I pulled up my kids' GPAs. And we had like the top GPAs in the school. I was like, you can't tell me that you're going to take this experience away from these kids. And they've been busting their tail academically, and they're the first here and the last to leave.
And to be honest, that made administration, that made everybody in that front office like, yeah, he got us by the tongue, and by some other things as well. And that's how we were able to make it happen. So when you have that back and forth with administration, you got to understand being a principal is not easy. They go to school for a very, very long time to earn that figure salary. And you've got to have those conversations. Not saying you got to butter them up, but like, hey, let's go get a bite to eat. I want to know what you want as a school and how can we marry the two. And if they see that you are really supporting them and pushing their program, I tell my kids every time that you have got to, I tell my kids you got to be the light in the school in terms of your academics, in terms of your behavior, and in terms of the way you walk and the way that you talk, because that makes things easy. When there's extra money coming in the school, guess what? They're going to think of you first. And so I noticed some band directors that don't push the academic piece as much, or and maybe kind of focusing on some other things, and you're going to end up hitting a brick wall, because again, the administrators run the school, and if you don't get on the same page with them, either it's going to make your job harder. Now, it could get to a point. Again, I mentioned when I was in Vegas, me and administration did see eye to eye in a lot of areas. And I told them, I was like, look, there's only going to be so many times that I'm going to come to this office and we're going to talk about what's right for the kids, and it falls on deaf ears. I'm confident in my skills, in my education, and in my knowledge that I can find a job anywhere. And I encourage my current band directors, future educators, and even individuals on staff, you've got to get that knowledge, you've got to get that paper, you've got to get that experience. So if you need to go somewhere else, you can. I've been fortunate to teach on the East Coast, the Midwest, the West, and now back in the South. And so, I'm never scared to say, okay, I see that your vision is not in the best interest of the kids in this program, then you need to find another director. And it sucks, because I was just telling somebody yesterday, the worst conversation as a director is telling your kids that you're leaving. Man, I don't even want to get on that topic because that gets me emotional thinking about the times that I've had to do that for either personal reasons or other reasons. And it makes things tough. So again, I just encourage you, you got to meet eye to eye and have, those courageous conversations. Let's see. Somebody had another question. I want to make sure that we tackle all these. Thanks, guys, for putting these questions in here.
Carlisha Smith said, as a director, what is the ideal team to have to build a successful program?
Man, I got that on my thing. That's a great question. Like, team. You have got to be mindful of who you put in front of your kids. Now, I get it. Sometimes you don't have money to pay a staff. At one point, I was like paying my staff, like we were making sure they had maybe gas in their car and something to eat. Be like, hey, we're going to make sure we feed you, make sure you can get from point A to point B. And it's tough because you want to be able to pay your staff, but you might not have the money. But you cannot put people in front of your program that don't have the best interest of your kids in mind. B, they're not going to follow instructions from the director. Because people have to understand that this is our career. This is our livelihood. If you as a staff member do something sideways, we get looked at and we get fired. And then it's going to be very difficult for me to go to another district and they say, hey, what happened? And you tell them, they're going to be, oh, that's on you. You have got to put people in front of these kids that got experience, but really the passion to work with students, and they're going to follow your vision. I've been blessed to have some pretty good staff, and when I was in Chicago, I did not have anybody but me and a parent, which was a former band student in the 70s. So guess what? I was running rehearsals, I was running sectionals, I was running drumline practice. And we had to do one on Saturday so I could just focus with them. And it was because I had those tools in my box. Of course, I had other mentors and other people to kind of help me with some things. But I'm fortunate that I've been able to build those necessary skills in each area within the band to kind of help out, in those areas. And so your team has got to be one that is all about the kids. I'm going to give you guys a golden nugget if you guys are ready. My first superintendent, which happened to be an Aggie as well, told me this in my first in-service meeting. That's when we got to meet as new teachers and band directors. Said, if you make every decision in the best interest of the kids, you will never make a wrong decision. And I'm here to tell you, 16, 17 years later, that is true. That is true. You can take it to the grave. And so when you're selecting your staff, it may be that homeboy, it may be that homegirl, somebody you were in school with, but you know them. And you might be like, hey, look, like, I love you to death. You can support from afar, but I can't have you like around these kids. You've got to be smart. You've got to be smart, because again, your students are gonna learn not by everything that the individual teaches them, but also like from what they see. You know, and people don't understand, like, as an educator, we have to go through so much to get certified, especially if you go from state to state. Several tests we got to take, money we're shelling out, and it's not easy. It's not easy. And all it takes is one mistake. You know what I'm saying? One mistake. And I see individuals hire staff based on like need, like, man, I ain't got nobody. I got to get somebody to do these drums. But then they get somebody that, you know, doesn't know how to talk to the kids, you know, maybe doing some things before rehearsal that they shouldn't, that's impeding their judgment, you know, or their overall, like, hygiene. I'm just being honest. Like, kids smell, you know, marijuana or something that's going on, and, you know what I'm saying, or alcohol, then it's like all they got to do is tell a parent, and then that's it. You're fired. They moving on to the next person. And so, again, as a director, you have got to be qualified, educated to do the job if you have to do it by yourself, but also have the foresight to put the right individuals around. I'm gonna be honest, I got a flag instructor that's never twirled flag before, but this individual works in the legal field. She's coached different athletic sports. She is organized, and she knows how to pull a team together. Let me tell you, these flags are on fire. I was like, oh, the flag part, that's easy. We can get that. But can you pull this team together? And she's like, hey, I can show you better than I can tell you. And they're doing great, and I'm so excited, you know. And so it just takes the right individual that's there for the right reason. It ain't about you reliving your college days and teaching that old cadence or that old fanfare or teaching somebody how to crank up. Nah, it's about seeing that kid from freshman year all the way through high school and to college. I always say my greatest joy is that I get the front row seat to a kid's life for 4 years. Plus, you know, I got former band students that are married to each other and got families. I got a former drum major that works at the Pentagon. Like, when I see stuff like that, I'm like, man, like, you know, it's a blessing. You know what I'm saying? Something that money could never buy. And so when it comes to your staff, you have got to know your vision, and are they with that? And if they're not, you got to hold them to the side. Hey, send us some water. Send us some snacks. Okay? But I can't have you around these kids. Okay, and that's coming from a personal place. You know, I got a real close friend that I would love for them to be on board, but I just can't. You know, and they understand. You know, and so we just have to, you know, keep it pushing.
And you want to run through your agenda, or you want to continue?
Yeah. Well, I love these questions. I want to get to these questions, and then I can get through that.
You want to do your agenda? You want to go through your stuff first?
No. Let's go through these questions.
All right. So we got a question from Doc, man. Doc Mac. Yeah. ABT asks, have you ever experienced your administration use band and other aspects of the arts as dumping grounds to meet FTE numbers?
Woo! Let me tell you.
Explain what FTE real quick is.
Right. Okay, so when it comes to FTE and our numbers, right, as a school, you are rated on, and it's different depending on where you go, and let me know, Doc, if I'm like off track with this, but depending on where you go, you have numbers that your school has to reach in terms of like whatever it's graduation rate and test scores and things like that, and they will use performing and fine arts and say, hey, you have to help out with that. This year, I'm a department chair, and I've had that conversation already with my administration. Like, how are you going to help math? How are you going to help English? How are you going to help everybody else? And because God is my witness, I was just telling my wife this morning, I was like, how are they going to help me put this field show on the field? How are they going to help me get this person to play their 12 major scales? I was like, ain't nobody going to help me, but I'm supposed to help them, you know? And so, again, I've experienced with administration using classes for a dumping ground. When I was in Vegas, I had to teach music appreciation, 2 sections that had over 50-something kids. We had a total of 6 sections in the entire department. Orchestra was teaching 4, I was teaching 2. And it was horrible. Those kids that were in the class, they didn't want to be in there. They were just thrown in there. And then when I tried to Say, hey, let's do some music tech. Let's get some production going. Let's get some beat making going. Let's do something that they want to do that they're interested in. I had all type of, kickback from them. Like, oh, no, we're just going to do this or whatever. And I'll be honest, I told my administration, you might as well just slap me in the face and tell me that, that you don't respect my discipline. Because this is exactly what you're doing. You have a way to change the name of this class, but you're calling music appreciation so you can just put kids in a class. And I had so many problems with those kids because they knew they didn't want to be there. They knew they were thrown in there. And to be honest, it's hard to teach something that you just know that it's just there to serve no purpose, And so I try to make it fun. I try to make it exciting. One year we did it in the theater, and I had them come up with like a production, like a kind of like a play, talking about like how music impacts life. Some folks, set some chairs out that they were in a car and listening to music and how it was like the soundtrack of their day. Like I tried to make it fun and exciting, but it got to the point that I was like, look, I'm tired of being disrespected. So it happens. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Full-time equivalent. Yep. They use those numbers to justify having a fine arts program. Yeah. Again, numbers is the name of the game when you are teaching. You have to have butts in seats. I had a office manager, we used to call her Mama Coleman in Chicago, and she used to say, we have butts and seats from meat to eat. You got to have kids in there, especially at charter school as well too, which it was in Chicago. You have got to have, butts and seats to be able to keep your classroom and stuff. Doc talks about Soundtrap. I did that all last year because that was the only thing that really worked on them Chromebooks, And so, again, like we deal with these things on a whole nother level in terms of classes. Now, I'm going to tell you, when you can get your administration on your side, it's a blessing. My administration say, hey, look, we know kids love band and we want them to be in band. You send me a list and we'll put them in your class. And that's one of the reasons why I came to DeKalb County, because I knew they supported band. You see those big old programs back in the day, Southwest Stevenson, Redan, Columbia, all of them. That was done because you had a district administrator that said, hey, we care about the performing and fine arts. We need to make a way for these kids to go from elementary band, because some kids start in 4th and 5th grade, and then all the way up the pipeline.
I got a good one, Chuck.
Go ahead, bro.
All right, so Quentin Adderby, man, this is about band dues, man. So how do you handle collecting band fees and fundraisers?
Great question. Okay, so again, you got to determine in terms of administration how you were going to do that. When I came to Tucker, they're like, hey, you got a booster organization, you got to do it through them. Again, when I was in Chicago, I had a budget. It was kind of like being a collegiate band director. I didn't have to nickel and dime my kids. And so I was able to get the necessary things I need. I just had them pay like a activity fee, which is like $35, right? But most of the time, like my band fees for my current band are $300 for my instrumentalist. We put the information out as early as possible. Of course, I give reminders because everything isn't free. But we try to put things in place, hardships for students that just can't afford it. I never want to make band like expensive that kids can't participate. I think that's why, I know for me and for others, having maybe limited knowledge or exposure to drum and bugle corps, to DCI at an early age, but then when I saw the requirements, not the musical requirements because I wasn't worried about that, but the financial, I was like, man, I can't afford that. I'm just being honest, and so I know that has held, I would say, black and brown individuals from participating in some way, shape, or form, because those fees are ridiculous. But you get a world-class experience, and so they always say you get what you paid for. And so, again, when it comes to band fees, we try to put things out early. Like for next year, we are definitely going to put that out there in the spring, so maybe they can pay half in the spring, and then they can pay the other half right when they come to camp. Again, we do some hardship forms. I always have parents that say, hey, is there a kid I can sponsor at least half or all of their fees? We also do sponsorships. That is the way to go right now. There are businesses that will give you $1,000 check, $2,000 check, sometimes more, and they'll write that off on their taxes. We have a brand new Pepsi plant here at Tucker, and Pepsi's a multi-million dollar, might even be billion-dollar corporation. What's 2,500 of them, 5,000 of them, right? If you write it up, show the connection to the community, maybe bring the band over there when they're doing some type of unveiling or something, man, it can get you a lot. I did that at a Walmart one time, and Walmart kicked in water for us like almost every year, you know? And so, again, when it comes to fees, you've got to be realistic as well, too. You know, I've seen some band fees be like ridiculously, you know, in terms of price, and I'm like, man, they're paying for a whole lot, you know, versus, you know, I try to keep it kind of modest. I think $300 is pretty, because again, they're getting all of that stuff. The only thing I do is I budget in a clinician fee. That's another thing. You got to make sure if you got staff, you bring clinician in, you got to pay them. You know, you got to pay them for their time and for their effort. And I put that in their fee because, again, those individuals have other jobs, and then they just, you know, spend their extra time afterwards to kind of help out. And so I just encourage that you have that conversation with your parents at your parent meeting, and with your students as well, because that is a reality. You can't go to Burger King and get a Whopper without any money. You know, and so, again, you just got to structure things that's in the best interest. It could be $100. It could just be $50 or whatever, something to kind of get your band program going, and you can get a lot of community support to help you guys out. Cool. Somebody said they had a dance coach who was very good teaching but couldn't handle conflict resolution. Right, yeah. Again, that happens. You got to get people that can work with kids. No matter how good they are, whatever their talent is, if they're not good in terms of leading by example and working with kids, it is not going to work, and there's going to be some drama, and they're going to end up getting you fired or getting you in trouble, or you're going to have to show your tail in front of your kids. And trust me, I've had to do that as well too, and that's not fun. And I don't encourage that for anybody. You always handle business like that, any issues with staff behind closed doors, never in public. That was a mistake I made as a younger director. Let's see. Yeah, Walmart Sam Clubs are great. Okay, cool. What is your membership behavior management system? You know, what I try to do is I attempt to empower my students and do some leadership activities so they know how to handle situations without the go-to drop or burn it up. Or when I was in Band of Fayetteville, Stamos Chambers say, fire it up, we gonna run laps. You know, there's other things that you can do. I always teach my students about the importance of knowing who they're leading. You've got to know your band as a director and as a leader. I used to have a drum major at A&T, Dante Robinson, that he made a note every year to know everybody's name and where they were from. And sometimes we had, you know, at one point in 2003, we had like 250, 60 people. Like, that's tough, you know. And for me as a director, I have to associate an instrument with my kid's name. As soon as I see that instrument in the hand, I'm like, oh, that's Kenny on trumpet, and I'll never forget it. And so, kind of like a drill sergeant, you know, in the military. Like, once you know, associate that individual with maybe a certain situation or whatever, you'll never forget. And so, again, I really try to tell the students, like, we have a chain of command, our student leadership, of course, section leaders, squad captains, drum majors, staff, and then me. And to be honest, a lot of things don't get to me, you know, because we just as a staff, we really just teach them about handling situations in a non-confrontational way. And if there is some discipline dishing out, that the leadership is doing it as well too. Again, I've always heard the best way to lead is by example. You are going to do more if you're within a section if you see your leader doing it with you as well. I always tell my drum major, hey, you got somebody out there running, go run with them. Section leader, okay, you told them to do 10, you do 20. You know, lead by example. Musically, okay, you had them play their major scales, you play your major scales and drop some of the minors, you know, as well. Like, you've got to lead in every facet. And there's some kids that are going to be the voice of the band, and there's also going to be individuals that just lead just by doing, you know. Okay, cool. So let me just kind of get back to this agenda right quick. The next thing I wanted to talk about is, well, we talked about vision, but also Like, are you trying to have instant success or Thanksgiving dinner? Right? We had a scrimmage, and then we had a scrimmage, right, like 2 weeks ago, and everybody was like, oh, is the band coming? Is the band coming? I was like, nah, you got to wait for Thanksgiving dinner. It doesn't happen overnight. And I told my kids that's what you tell folks as well, too. You know, again, you've got to want people to like see your program, but when it's time to show up, you got to show up and show out, right? And so, you know, are you just trying to get some songs out there, turn up a little bit, or are you trying to build something? We take about 30 to 45 minutes every day at the beginning of rehearsal, warming up, tuning up, going through chorales, going through exercises, whether it's lip slurs, long tones, things like that, to develop the student musically. Because if you do that, then you can play anything on the page. You know, and one thing I got to do with my band, we had to work on some reading. Their reading is not where I want it to be, and I was just talking about it earlier today. And so tomorrow we're going to spend that 30, 45 minutes just doing some reading exercises and really building them. I encourage you guys, band directors, future band directors, educators, or people that just want to know, you got to get kids in your band class. And that can be a hurdle, but when they understand, like when it comes to those scholarship dollars, let me tell you, administration, your counselors will fix it. That's another thing. I ain't talk about the importance of being, you know, hold on one second, guys. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, guys. All right. So, it is really, really important for you to have a working relationship with your counselors, because they're the ones that are going to get those kids in your classrooms. And, you know, just talking with them just about like how the IB program, how the honors program works, different things, and how can you fill your seats in your band program. All right, cool. So again, Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah, you got to get the kids' interest. That's another thing. Like as a director, you know, you can play any type of music that you want to play and do anything you want to do. And it's just very, very important that you give them something attractive. As much as I throw out, like today we played Rock With You by Michael Jackson. My kids loved it, but then I turned around and we played No Hands by Waka Flocka, like right after that. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to give you some of the songs that I want to do and that, you know, are mean a lot to me. But also, I'm going to give you that carrot. I'm going to give you that candy as well, too. And to understand the relation. When we were doing No Hands, we were talking about syncopation and relating it to bebop and to jazz. Again, this goes back to knowing your craft, you know. And I agree, Doc. It starts at elementary school. You know, we've got a lot of music educators that all they want to do is be the high school band director, right? And be there on Friday Night Football. Now, I know it might sound cliche because I'm a high school band director, but that was just my calling. I really wanted to teach middle school, you know, to start off with. And I got my shot when I was in Chicago because all those kids were middle school kids. Starting in 9th grade, they had never touched an instrument before, and so I had to get in the trenches to really build those kids. But again, and thank you, Eddie, for posting those things as well too. I always say the program's got to be Thanksgiving dinner, slow cooked, prepared, and just building. And when you do that, then you can play anything. You can play anything, but too many times I see directors, and not just young directors, you know, just other individuals, just it's kind of you're fast fooding it, excuse me. You know, let me get the 4 for 4. Let me just crank out these pieces and beat it in their head until they get it. No, you know, before we play a piece, we always play the scale associated with the key signature. You don't know the key signature? Okay, we're going to teach you how to find the key signature. It will make life a whole lot easier. Okay? All right. So going to my next topic. And again, Doc, you know I understand as well. Your men's don't understand, but it is your job to have those courageous conversations. And when they understand that you are there to care for them kids, you're gonna know if that's where you need to be or do you need to shift somewhere else. You know? And they always say the grass is not always green on the other side because sometimes it can be fake, but there is a district, a county for you that will support you. And I am not about to waste any of my years, put any extra stress on my family and my kids because I'm somewhere that doesn't get it. I'm sorry, love those kids to death, but I'm gonna go where else where they understand and where they need me and where they're gonna allow me to do my thing. You can't be scared to do that. But I'm gonna be honest, we've got some music educators out there that are not certified, band directors that are not certified, that can't go from state to state, nor are they interested in getting better and learning better pedagogy. And that keeps you in a box. That keeps you only being able to teach in one area, versus maybe going somewhere else.
Hey, Chuck.
Yo.
The other day, a meme was posted in the group, and it was a joke, but it was kind of serious. It talked about parenting, pulling up to a kid's house and seeing all the lights on cars in the driveway, and the kid's telling you he doesn't have a way to practice, things like that. So you talked about band kids, you talked about administration. How do you navigate band parents that aren't being supportive and not giving the kids what they need to be successful in your program?
Man, that's great, man. I'm telling you, when you have that parent meeting, I look all of my parents in the face, and I know for me, and I say, hey, raise your hand if you like money. Almost every parent go raise their hand. I was like, Rick, keep your hands up if you want to save money. I was like, and then I give them the statistics. In my years of being a high school band director, and I don't know how I made it work. I coached high school basketball for 6 years. And I have seen firsthand the support when it comes to athletics. I've seen some of the most talented athletes not get a dime. But I've seen that one hard worker that just learned how to play the instrument a year ago be able to get most of their college paid for. And I tell them those stories. I tell them that, hey, there's an 80% to 90% chance if your child is with me for 4 years that they're going to be eligible for college scholarship. On the athletic side, it's less than, I think it's 2%. Maybe we'll say 3, just being, benefit of the doubt. And I have those conversations, and those parents are like, wow. And this is why it's so important that you dig in, because when they see that, I show them pictures. I got a student right now, freshman. Her name is Gianna, and she plays French horn and mellophone for Alabama A&M. And I show them that picture. I got one that's, a freshman at Jackson State University. And I show them all of those kids, and I tell them those stories of these kids that just started out. I tell them about I had a tuba player get thrown in my class, had never played tuba before, and in a matter of a year, we got him over $50,000 in scholarship money. And I tell them these stories, and they see how passionate I am about it, and they see the kids being able to do that that's local, and they're like, man, maybe my kid can do that. And we have those conversations. Some parents don't understand the importance for a kid to practice and to work on those things. I'm like, hey, this could be their ticket. This could be their ticket to help pay for college and to do some great things. But I'm going to tell you, again, your performance is your biggest recruitment, but it's also the biggest way to get your parents hooked. When you got them kids out there playing and moving together, and they're smiling, they're having a great time, and you never know what's going on with some of these kids at home. Again, when I taught Chicago, man, I love them babies to death, man. But some of them had some really, really tough situations at home. And when their parents would see them perform or hear about some of the great things they did, man, they would just be like, man, this is amazing, And so it's very, very important, that you have those courageous conversations with parents and call home and say, hey, such and such is doing good. Encourage them to get better. Send them to a camp in the summer. And when they hear about those experiences, man, them kids are going to sell it themselves. You're not going to have to do too much talking. And so, again, you let those other kids be the example, for those kids to strive and to get better.
Hey, real quick, Crystal had a caveat, I guess it's from the previous discussion about the slow cooked meals. So do you think the general public is patient enough with the slow cooked meal process?
You see my face? Heck no. They're not. They want it now. They want it now. We see that. I'm going to be honest. Folks, they go in on Bethune-Cookman. But everybody knows they sound amazing. If you've ever had an opportunity to be in front of them, they sound amazing. Why? Because their process is slow cooked. FAMU's the same way. You know, there's a lot of programs that adopt the slow cook mentality, and people don't appreciate it. You know, versus like the fast food, and we know that fast food ain't good for us. I try my hardest not to eat, you know what I'm saying, certain fast food, and every time I go back and do it, man, I'm sick as a dog, and I'm like, God, I know better. And it's the same thing. Sometimes I'll rush the process as a director, and then I see the result, and I'm just like, I know better. I know better. And if we know better, we have to do better. And I just don't think the general public, also some of our band, you know, culture, don't understand what it takes to build and what it takes to grow and to maintain and to retain students and do these, you know, these directors dirty. I don't mean to get on my soapbox, but I was at the Precision Camp here in ATL this summer that I got to be a clinician for, and I was sitting between, I ain't gonna tell the directors' names, but they two great programs, great directors, right? And I'm sitting there, I find myself sitting in between them, and they're having a conversation, and you know what they're talking about? They're talking about how the internet makes their job like something that they don't want to do. You know, in terms of like, oh, they're not going to this game or this, that, and the third, or people, you know, talking smack or whatever. And you can tell folks till they blue in the face, don't read the comments, don't. It comes back to you. They say bad news travel fast. It comes back to you, and it makes these directors sick. And I just felt bad. And as an aspiring collegiate professor, sometimes I question, like, man, do I want that? You know, do I want to subject myself to, you know, individuals that have never built, like, you know, trashing on my program? But I get it. You know, we put ourselves in the limelight, and some of these programs are out there for everything to see in social media, and it's something you have to learn and deal with. But I felt generally bad for these directors, like having to take time out of their schedule to just kind of get themselves together, because the people that they feel should support them the most are some of the ones that, you know, some of that stuff stings, man. They say words don't hurt. Nah, some of that stuff stings. You know, you're like, man, I'm going through all of this. I'm getting paid chump change. I'm sacrificing my weekend and my livelihood and my family. You know, I know so many directors that they girl done left them, you know, because of the commitment that they got to have to the craft. And then folks that hardly can blow their nose, let alone run a band program for a day, going to say something negative. Like, I just don't get that. All right, that's my soapbox. All right. But yeah, I don't think the general public is, you know, willing to, you know, be patient. Be patient. But we've seen it. Look at programs that go to like Honda and the Cracker Barrel and all those different events that really like put time and energy in their show and stuff like that. It's just such an amazing thing, you know, and it's great. You're like, man, they really took their time. They really grow and they really built, you know, versus others that I feel they just kind of throw things together. All right, so moving on. Securing the bag. We need money to function, right? You have got to justify what you're purchasing for your program. But there's things out there. There's grants out there. A lot of our schools just got a whole bunch of money through this program, eSplash. The United States government has sectioned off a certain amount of money for performing and fine arts in districts all over the place. Some of you guys don't know about this because your administrators know that if they don't tell you, that eventually that money will belong to the school. I'm fortunate in the district that they told us exactly how much we had, and I've been getting new instruments rolling in. Every program that I've been to, I've been able to get new instruments, and I'm on my third set of brand new uniforms, you know, and it's very, very important that you have a working relationship with your administration and they understand that you serve them and serve the community. So when that money comes in, they're thinking of you first. I don't forget, I was in Chicago. My principal was like, hey, we just got some random $5,000 check. Does the band need some stuff? I'm like, yeah, I already have my wish list ready. And just ordered the stuff same day. You know, and it's because when they needed us to do something, we were ready to do it, you know. But you got to be careful because sometimes you can be pimped. And I had to remind folks, I've had to do it in my career, like, hey, look, you're not going to pimp my kids. You got to make sure they're taken care of. You know, if I feel like my kids are not being pimped, then I'm going to, you won't see the band there. And so again, you got to build that working relationship. But securing the bag, comprehensive purchases. You have got to purchase stuff for your entire program. You may have an administrator that loves jazz. You got to get drum sets. You got to get bass guitars. You got to get keyboards. You got to know how to run a jazz band. If you don't, you got to find somebody that can help you with that. You have got to get timpanis. You have got to get congas. You have got to get marimbas and other things. Like you can't just get 20 sousaphones. That's going to kill your budget. You can't just get a brand new drum line every 3 years or whatever. You have got to get you have to make comprehensive purchases for your program. And being aware, we have, great companies like Music and Arts, Consumer, Yamaha, and others that will work out deals, or your local mom and pop music program. We have one here. It's called Century Music Center. I got to plug them in because it's an old school band director that runs it, and he will drop off flyers. He'll show up, talk to your kids. He gives a kid an instrument free for 3 months, and then on that third month, that's when their first payment starts. 3 months is like almost our season. You best believe I'm going to hook them kids in if I needed to get an instrument. And so again, you have got to be knowledgeable of what's out there, how much stuff costs, and putting your wish list together and really making sure that you are making comprehensive purchases to have a comprehensive program. Now, if you're unsure of what that looks like, there's some individuals that are just great at building a concert band or a jazz band or even just a marching band. You got to find a mentor. Okay, there's tons of directors that are out there that are given the game, because they want to help people get better. And I was fortunate to have a lot of mentors that helped me out a lot. So when I first started teaching, I didn't feel like a new director.
Hey, real quick, man. Hey, real quick. So if you are just tuning in, just giving y'all pretty much an intro, man. Welcome to the Band Room Live, man. This is the first time we're doing this right here. We have several illustrious group experts in our group, man, that have a full wealth of knowledge, and they're going to bestow that upon y'all every week, Monday, starting at 8 o'clock every Monday, man. So this is the first day. This is Charles Connor right here, man. So go ahead and keep doing what you're doing, Chuck.
Appreciate it, bro. What was it? Travis mentioned he noticed that a lot of people really can't sell when smaller programs is polished because they expect bands to sound like 200-piece program. Bro, Travis, we were in a band together at Fayetteville State with the late great Timothy Chambers. And man, let me tell you, in that band program, with just enough to rock and roll, made that band sound amazing. And it's all about quality over quantity. And if you got a smaller program, you have got to engineer your show, your program, to have the best sound ever. And there's different ways to do it. One of the biggest strengths that I know Mr. Chambers used to tell me, and it really put me to the test when I was in Chicago because I had beginning musicians and my instrumentation was all over the place, is being able to write for your bands. If you're able to write, and I see sometimes we have a lot of different arranging things going out there, that folks write in an orchestration style that will only fit when you got 40-something trumpets. What if you have 3? That ain't going to work, And so there's different ways and different things you can do things. I'm going to drop a hint. One of the ways that you can make your band sound full is give your saxophone some of them trombone rhythms and harmonies. That will fill up your band really, really quick. Put your baritones on a third trombone and then have your tenor trombone stack above it if you want 3-part harmony. Like there's different things that you can do to mask a small band and make them sound bigger just by orchestration. But if you don't know these things, you know what I'm saying? If you don't know those things, then you're just going to be stuck. What works for Southern University doesn't work for one band. What works for A&T doesn't work for another band. You have got to have knowledgeable individuals that understand that. And sometimes you got some folks that teach secondary education. You got folks that are on collegiate staff that don't understand this and they only can function in that environment. But throw them to a program that has 800 people or throw them to a program that has less than 30 wins. How you gonna build this band program? And that comes from pedagogy and knowledge. I don't say I'm perfect, and it's definitely a it's definitely a flattery to say expert or whatever. I just been doing this for a while and had some great mentors. And the reason why I'm successful is because I'm not scared to make a mistake, and I've made all the mistakes that you can make, and I just try to be better from that. Let's see. Okay, so I talk again, securing the bag. There's different ways you can do it. Grants, different programs like Consumer will help you get instruments, things like that. I know Prof. PJ Howard was doing something with System Blue. Say, hey, get you these horns, get you the drum line for free. Like, there's different things that you can do it, and you got to put it out there to the community. Use social media and say, hey, we need this. There are tons of parents that have former kids that. Kids that are former band students that just have instruments that are collecting dust. I had a parent drop off an instrument like, yeah, my kid hadn't played in years. Maybe somebody could use it. Do you know this was a Bach Stradivarius trumpet? This thing is like top of the line. I oiled it up, cleaned it up real good, and I gave it to one of my students. I said, Merry Christmas. He said, what is this? I was like, this is your new horn. And he ended up being a music major, and that was his horn. Stuff like that, can really build your program and push that student. There's nothing better than I put a brand new flute, with a gold-plated head joint in two of my students' hands today, open hold. I say, hey, here you go, Merry Christmas. And I'm telling you that will push them. And it does that because when you put in the time and effort to advocate for your program intelligently. You can't just be like, hey, I need $200,000. Like, you got to be able to talk about how this stuff is going to benefit your program. And then when you get it, you got to put out a product. You got to do well at festival. You got to do well, at different performances and things like that. They want to see where that money going to. And if that money's going to somewhere positive and helping these kids, start a career, the collegiate career, and then some, man, the sky's the limit. I think I already asked the question about building the team, but I did put in there about worthwhile projects and performances. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't do every battle of the bands underneath the sun. There's an old saying, every gig is not a good gig. I was kind of having a back and forth, but I was having a intellectual exchange with an individual, and he was like, oh, any exposure is great exposure. I beg to differ. You're not going to ask my kids to come do a parade and I got to pay for transportation and I got to feed my kids and stuff like that. Like, nah. Like, it takes a lot to move these band programs. And even if it's just a little donation, then that can help your program move forward. They got to understand that this takes a lot of work. Everybody in here has been in band in some way, shape, or form, and we know it's not magic. And sometimes these individuals think that it's just magic to put together. It may look like it, but it's a lot of work. And so you have to select worthwhile projects and performances for your program. I think it's okay to do a little bit of everything. I do the jamborees. I do some Battle of the Bands. Do the community parades. But you best believe we're going to be there at LGPE, which is our festival. This year we're going to be there for the Jazz Festival. I'm taking my kids to district auditions, solo and ensemble. Like, I'm, making sure that we do a little bit of everything. Sometimes I see some directors that are just always doing one. Oh, we got to do this. And I understand. I built that monster. That's something that me and Prof. Chisholm talk about all the time, that we build the monster. At one point, I was going to every Battle of Bands. I was going to every event. Whoever want to pull up, let's go, and I was like, for what? I never forget sitting in a Battle of the Bands one time, Jeff, I'm going to get on there in a second, bro. I remember sitting in a Battle of the Bands. My daughter was still in Pampers, and the lights were off, and I'm sitting on my little platinum, my wooden podium, and it's a Saturday, and I'm looking at my daughter, and she's running around having a good time, but I was like, man, I'd rather just be home. Like, I didn't think any of the bands that day, my band included, sounded good. I was more critical of my band than anybody else. It was just loud and obnoxious in the gym. We paid all this money for these buses. The food was subpar. Like, I was like, man, my kids could be spending time with their family and doing other things, And I just like, man, I got to change it. But it was an expectation for us to be at this event all the time. And I just like, man, I've got to do better in terms of balancing things out, for not only the physical health, but also the mental health of my program. We forget as musicians that a rest is just as important as a note. And we have to, make sense. I'm not going to a competition every weekend. Your show is not going to get better in a week. But you space it out every 2 weeks or so, then you can really grow and develop and make this thing better. That's what we want. We want to get better versus like taking a test every other day or whatever. Okay. Jeff talked about or asked on choices of branded instruments when starting students instrument. Good. It's very important. I've made this mistake as well too, is buying these big brand spanking instruments, F attachments for all my trombones, my beginning trombones, and wondering why it's hard for them to build and develop this sound through this intermediate advanced horn when they need to be on a beginning horn. You've got to talk shop. You've got to know your brands. Okay, I got certain brands that I love to rock with, but you have got to be cognizant of the student's ability. You're not going to give a beginning flute player with a B flat open hole foot, you know what I'm saying? You have got to, again, be aware of different models, different things. This is why we go to conferences. That's one thing that's on my list, is talking about professional development. Going to conferences and talking with the developers of these instruments. I had an opportunity to, of course, I'm a lower brass player, so I play sousaphone as well. I love the Con 20Ks. They're a great instrument. But I played another sousaphone, I think it was from System Blue, and I was like, ooh, this thing is nice as well, too. Like, trying different things and finding out what's the best for you and your program and also your budget as well. I know a lot of tuba players scoff at those fiberglass sousaphones, but if that's all you can get, it's very important, to again, you'd rather get, some instruments that are going to help you buy other instruments in your program versus like using all your budget, to get these top of the lines. But there's also programs that can help and say, hey, if you buy this amount, then they'll give you a discount for this or whatever. And so, again, it's very important that mouthpieces, horns, horn sizes, bore, diameter, like all of these things, in terms of purchasing, so you don't like overspend and you could have used that money for something else. You got to get some beginning brand instruments, beginning model instruments for your beginners to start. And then, of course, like I said, I was able to put that, beautiful flute in a few of my upperclassmen hands and say, hey, you're ready for this, and then working their way up there. Again, understanding like mouthpieces, our beginners, for an example, good mouthpieces and ligatures make a difference, but you got to know this. And one of my mentors, Mr. Roosevelt Pratt, again, I say it, he was like, whatever you don't play, Charles, you need to have it underneath your desk. And you need to learn how to play it. You need to go through those struggles as well, too. I can sit there and tell my saxophones, instead of pressing, the bis key that's for the B flat, let's use the side key, here, because it's going to help us get through that line a little bit easier. Like, I have to know those things. We're talking about throat tones for clarinets, and the different registers, the altissimo, the shallow, I have to know those things to be able to teach my kids. But if we don't have sound pedagogy, or we don't seek it, you may have not got it in undergrad, but you seek the knowledge to be better, then that's truly going to help your program in so many different ways, versus just kind of being stubborn. Some directors, they're just real stubborn, Some of us had stubborn college band directors or high school band directors that they going to do it their way and then that's it. I get that, but, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Let's see.
Hey, Chuck, just a quick update. We coming up on an hour. You good? What you looking at agenda-wise, man?
I got two and a half more points.
Okay, yeah. I don't want to have folks up all night, but at the same time, it's good information right here, man. So.
That's all good, man. Those that know me know I can talk all night.
I got you. I appreciate
it, bro.
All right,
all right. So again, we talked about worthwhile projects. Again, finding out for your program, recruitment, retention, and college readiness. It is our job as a band director or a music educator is to prepare our kids for the next level. I always tell my middle school, my feeder programs, I need them to have good posture, good tone, sound reading, and how to function in a rehearsal. If they do those things, then I can take them to the moon and back. It makes my life a whole lot easier. And I'm fortunate that I have a good feeder program that she sent some beasts, up to my up to my program. And I know what it is not to have a feeder program, to start all beginners and stuff. And so it is our job to prepare them for the next stage. I don't know how many collegiate band directors that are my mentors, and they talk about kids coming in and having more issues when it comes to basics, in terms of reading, in terms of being familiar with their instrument. Maintenance as well too. I always go through maintenance with my kids and teach them how to clean and maintain the horns. Of course, I'm not going to teach them, using all the screws and stuff like that, because I don't want to break anything. But if I find a student that has, the desire to learn some of those things, then I just, teach them along the way. And so, again, recruitment is going to be your performance. Retention is going to be you keep feeding them. There's an old saying, the dog's going to go where they're fed, right? And you got to keep feeding them and piquing their interest, giving them songs that they want to play. But also, it's very important to give them those things that they've never experienced. I was fortunate to be part of a comprehensive program from middle school all the way up. Jazz band, concert band, marching band, the whole nine. And I look forward to my director selecting some new pieces. And I sit down and listen to our different concert pieces with our kids. We played this piece last year called Prelude and Firestorm. And I played it for my kids, and instantly their eyes lit up, and I said, bam, that's it. I know that it's going to, turn over good because they're going to be excited about it. Again, we have this misconception that concert band is boring. You're going to play some of the most intense music in there, and it can be fun and exciting, just like anything else, especially our jazz music as well, too. Finding some things. I have some Latin folks that are in my band program, so I always try to find some Latin pieces. I have some individuals from the Middle East, and this year I'm searching for a couple pieces that we can play that's from that's from that origin of the world. Again, culturally relevant education. We have to be aware that we can't just do the songs that our band directors did. We got to, dare to try something different and do something and showing the excitement of it. I had a great conversation with the band director at Florida Memorial, Mr. Beckford. And Mr. Beckford talked to my kids, and he put it to my kids this way. He said, how dare you be so selfish that you don't share this experience with your friends? And I was like, oh my goodness, that makes so much sense. That was the recruitment piece that we needed. Share this experience with your friend, with your best friend. And so, again, that just helped my kids, and I just loved hearing that because, again, it really helped us in terms of the retention. Hey, we want to do this again, and we want to share it with 2 or 3 other people. Now, it's very important in terms of recruitment and also college readiness is to get your kids involved in camps. I'm a product of the Florida A&M Marching 100 camp. I went in the summer of '99. Where Back That Thing Up was the highlight song in the dance routine. So I'm showing my age. That camp taught me a lot. And it poured gasoline already on a fire that I already had for band. And I sent about 4 or 5 kids to that camp this year. I had a kid go to a Grambling camp. I had several students go to Precision Camp here in Atlanta. I really pushed them to go out and experience band at one of these collegiate camps. Why? Because it answers a couple questions. It answers, A, how good are you compared to other kids that are younger and older? Also, are you ready to do something like this on the collegiate level? And some kids go that, man, this was tough. I can imagine doing this in college. Or others would be like, yeah, this is exactly what I want to do. And so it's very important that you push them to these clinics so they can get these other things. Again, we know that I don't know, I guess you say a situation where our parents try to tell us something and after a while it's wah, 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 wah. That's what happens with band directors where we say things over and over and over. But when they go to these camps, they learn some of these things and then, pass them on. And they hear some of the same things that you tell them all the time. And then they're able to bring that back to your camp and get going. So again, it's very, very important that you push them. And I don't even care. I don't care if it's a camp that doesn't just have like marching band. It may just be a concert camp, a jazz camp, something to keep these kids reading and keep them going. That's really, really important to recruitment and retention and them being ready for collegiate band. Too many times I see college freshmen come in and they're not ready. They're not ready musically, they're not ready physically, and they're not ready mentally. It's a big thing. They don't understand, like, hey, like, these college band programs, they're about to go to war every weekend, or they're going to the Macy's, or they're going to the Tournament of Roses. They're going here and going there. Like, it's a lot. It's like a full-time job, and sometimes we don't get paid for it. So you got to do what you got to do to prepare them. And if you're unsure of that, you got to get up with some of these other directors that push kids, the pipeline up, to our collegiate band programs. The last thing that I only had 2, not 3. It says, now you're rolling, what's next? And I touched on it a little bit. Professional growth and development. You as a band director, as a music educator, as a staff member, you have got to get better. You have got to get better. Whether it's going to graduate school, whether it's going to clinics, whether it's renting an instrument that you don't play that well, and asking questions. I see Keita Colson's on here, young band director, and he's always very, very humble and asking questions and willing to learn. That's exactly what you have to do. I'm going to be honest. There's a young band director that's out there that I've reached out to, others have reached out to, and I talked to their college band director, and they said, oh, they're not going to listen to you, because they're kind of just, in their own world. And it sucks because this individual is very, very talented, kind of rough around the edges. And if we just listen to a few things from a couple directors, not just me, maybe somebody else, his program could be stellar. But it's kind of suffering, in my opinion, because the pedagogy's not there. And versus like, me or anybody else putting somebody else on Front Street, we'll hit them up in the inbox, shoot an email and say, hey, like, let's have a conversation, But again, some individuals, never, right. Hey, that's what I've experienced. But, I say this, Eddie, it's important. You got to know when to have that bravado or that gusto, right? When it's time, when it's on that podium, to bring that fire and that thunder out of your students. But then, humility is a great trait, and it doesn't, equal weakness. And I'm not saying you or anybody else says that, but sometimes, instead of like getting advice, from, individuals that have been doing it for a while, I say, oh, no, I got it. Oh, he old school. He don't know what he's doing. It's like, really? And that goes back to my next topic, like, or like a previous topic, like, what are you in it for? Are you there for the shine, or are you there to make your kids shine? And in this day of social media and technology, a lot of times, folks are doing things for attention. I put my band out on live a lot because I want feedback. I want collegiate directors to hear my program and to say, hey, I want that French horn player. I want that trumpet player. And I like to look at the videos to see what I can do to be better. I had a courageous conversation with another great music educator, and they're like, I don't think that's good because this, that, and the third. I was like, look, you've named all the negative stuff. What about the positive? There's a lot of positive that can come from it. I don't want likes. I want my kids to get those likes, and I want to see areas that I can improve on. I've had some legendary band directors come on and be like, great job. Or I've had a few text messages be like, hey, Charles, you got to do this, do that. This is going to help, and it's very important. Yeah, Keita, that's exactly right, bro. People, it will click when you are actually in the classroom and you're in the helm, when you're responsible for the education of these kids. That's when it will click. But until you're in that seat as that director of bands, and I don't say that lightly, there's some people that are out there that are band directors, meaning that you got one band. Director of bands is multiple ensembles playing a wide variety of music. Not just doing one thing. Not just doing the concert band, not just doing the jazz band, not just doing the marching band. Director of bands is a title that I don't, it shouldn't be given lightly. You've got to be able to function in each of those ensembles and be able to teach them. From bebop to trap music to chorales to marches, to bossa nova. Like, you got to know these things and you got to respect the craft. And that's one thing I can say. Our older directors that are older than me, they know this stuff like the back of their hands. And, along the way, it's been a little diluted, but there are some young and talented individuals that are out there that I'm just like, man, keep doing it. I love it. I love seeing young music educators go out there and get it. But if all I see is one ensemble, then I'm looking side-eyed like, where's the rest? Or I've seen some programs that all they have is brass. Where the woodwinds at? Where are your vegetables? You got the meat and potatoes, where are your vegetables? Or I'm seeing their drumline all the time, but I don't see them kids playing mallets or any of our pitch percussion, and that's what we have to do better. And I truly care about this culture and this craft because I had some band directors that truly cared about pouring into me and some community members that came and worked with us to show us what band was all about and how we can be better. And they were great mentors. And so, again, I truly stand on the shoulders of giants. I'm always trying to grow and be better. I just got a soprano sax for my program, and I've been hogging that thing because I like playing on it, and I got a flugelhorn as well too, and I love playing that thing. And so again, I told my students I got into education because I didn't want to leave the band program or the band room because I loved it so much, and I want to provide that experience, for them tenfold. And I had a great experience, so I wanted to be better for them. So. That's pretty much what I got right here. I know I've been talking for a long time. If there's any quick questions, I guess, in here, I would love to answer them. If we're not friends, add me. I will give research. Yes, Keita, I sent him some stuff yesterday, and I got some more stuff from him. Like, I'm an open book, and I just try to pass this stuff on so people can get better because I truly want people's band programs to be better, like from the inside out. And I know we can do that with having conversations like this, and I'm just looking forward to hearing the other panelists that are going to be jumping on over the next few weeks because I'm just going to be glued like, hey, what can I do to be better? And last thing before I do end, I will say this. If you are in a, Rontrell, run your concert band clips like your marching band. Run them all. Let's see them all. And let's help each other get better. But I say this, if you're in a city that has a community band, jump in it. I got to play with the Chicago State Community Band with Dr. Roxanne Stevenson, and I played with Cobb County Winds with the legendary Dr. Watkins, Alfred Watkins. And it's a master class like every 2 weeks. And I learned some things. Every time. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I've been saying this wrong the whole time I've been teaching. Or, oh yeah, I tell my kids that all the time. Like, I'm just a kid, like, watching and being in rehearsal with my trombone and just trying to learn as much as I can. And I just encourage you to do it because when you get in that seat as a student and then you're able to be the director, man, you just pour that back out to your kids. And then your kids get to see you perform. I still go out there and march 8 to 5 with the kids. I get out there with my drum majors every so often, not as much anymore. I put that sousaphone on. I put that bass drum on, pick up that saxophone, and show them, like, my passion. But, hey, you can learn this too. And so, again, I just encourage you, if you want to get better, be better. Be a better musician. Respect your craft. Get better at your pedagogy. And just try to pass on some positive knowledge to the next generation. And that's how we can truly get better.
Hey, man, I appreciate you, Chuck, man. If you have not been taking notes, man, I hope you have been. If you haven't, man, I tried to jot down the main key points in the comments. I'll go back and try to add the rest of them. But this, man, tonight's been a success, bro. I think that you really helped out a lot of the new directors, a lot of the aspiring directors that look up to you, man. So This has been the first of many. Like you said, next week we're going to continue this every Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, man. So, yeah, this has been Charles Connor, man. We call him the Band Room Group expert. You know what I'm saying? It's only fitting, though, man. Appreciate the knowledge tonight, Chuck.
Thanks, man. I just appreciate the opportunity. And I'm looking forward, man. 'Tis the season. We in band season. I'm ready to see some Friday Night Football clips and see some programs running, man. And so everybody just to see what you can do to support everybody and let's have a great year, man.
Absolutely, man. All right, man. I'll see y'all in the band room. Later.
All right. Peace.